Before the days of modern technology, miners brought canaries into the mines for safety. If there were deadly gases collecting in the shafts, the canaries would collapse, a sign to the miners that they should evacuate to fresh air, natural light, and solid ground. Recently, another canary signaled the need for fresh thinking in Montpelier. It came as a late-day statement from a regional chamber of commerce in Bennington County. The organization's mission is to promote its local businesses, but it announced it was facing closure and would need to shut down. A last-minute effort may have saved this chamber, but it's another indication that legislative leaders and Governor Shumlin have set priorities in the wrong areas. The chamber cited Vermont Health Connect's mandate on small businesses as a reason for its potential closing. It's the only mandate like it in the nation, and one that I opposed. They said, just as we were gaining momentum, we experienced a major financial setback. We lost our ability to offer insurance to members when the state introduced Vermont Health Connect. The loss for our chamber was nearly 100 memberships and $75,000 in the first year alone. Their closure is just the latest in a string of concerning economic warning signs. Look, you know the truth. The last 5 years we've seen hundreds of layoffs, coupled with dozens of sales and devastating closures. We've lost thousands of working-age Vermonters, people our local economies and communities rely on, and who help pay for government services and schools. The economic challenges are even greater outside of Chittenden County. And with fewer workers in the workforce, the growing tax burden is spread across fewer people. Yet lawmakers ignore these telltale signs of an eroding economic foundation and continue to dig deeper, exposing everyone to more economic risk. It's a very dangerous cycle that we need to break. Just 2 days before the Regional Chamber of Commerce announcement, a majority of House Ways and Means Committee members proposed more than $48 million in new taxes and fees for next year. Rather than finding savings the House minority has already identified, the majority is proposing to raise more money for the people of Vermont who work and live here. Monday, the House Appropriations Committee responded with a budget proposal that uses all but $1.3 million of those new dollars. And today, despite the aggressive resistance of the pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-change minority coalition in the House, for the 7th consecutive fiscal year, the House passed a general fund budget that grows at more than twice the growth of the underlying economy, and substantially faster than wages. Over the past decade, the Vermont economy has increased at an average inflation-adjusted rate of less than 1% each year. Over the past 6 years, a dangerous spending addiction has caused the budget to grow at around 5%, while revenue, wages, and the economy as a whole grew at about 2%. Altogether, the majority has raised taxes and fees by well over $500 million. And the budget they just passed would add $48 million more. For all these reasons, I cannot support this budget. I said earlier today that if I had to vote on it, I would vote no. And I want to be very clear about this. If I were governor and a budget like this came to me, I would veto it. I would send it back to them. I would offer to work with them to do the right thing. But when I'm governor, I don't think it will come to this. I won't think it'll come to a veto, because I'll set very different priorities, establish very clear limits, and have the support of the people of Vermont. We'll work together to make state government more efficient and more productive. And that's not just political rhetoric. It's an economic essential. My view is simple. If legislation measurably helps our economy or makes Vermont more affordable for families and businesses, we should move it forward. If it does neither, it should be set aside. This is what Vermonters need the legislature to prioritize. with laser-like focus. Make no mistake, it's possible to pass a budget this year that does not raise taxes. And they still have time to reform the state budget this year. But they have to begin now. Over the second half of the legislative session, the legislature must focus on laying the foundation for significant and measurable improvements. To do that, the budget must not grow more than the underlying economy. This approach is one of the biggest keys to statewide revitalization. It will enable us to invest in our future, lift wages, and reverse the crisis of affordability facing many families who cannot sustain increases year after year. The tools are there. There are more than 24 bills, many introduced by the Republican minority, that would positively impact Vermont families and businesses, or address this unsustainable spending. As it stands today, only a few of them are going to be taken up, such as H.867, which provides clarity for independent contractors, and H.868, a very modest economic development bill. We don't have to abandon our values to get our budget back on track and focus on economic growth. It's not an all or nothing scenario. We can contain state spending while maintaining essential services to Vermont's most vulnerable populations and preserving environmental protections. The legislature must rethink every line item and focus on rebuilding our foundation. This work shouldn't wait until next year. We must heed the warnings and stop digging. It's time to get back on solid ground and start growing again. Thank you very much for your time.
Paid for by Phil Scott for Vermont, Glenn Wright, Treasurer.